and scroll. Talk and scroll. Talk and
Okay, so right now I'm going to respond to this particular thread, and just for context, I am responding as a certified Florida educator. I'm currently a media specialist at the high school level, and I also have experience teaching middle school math, and I did so while my son was in middle school, and my son is now a senior at University of Central Florida, pursuing law school. So that's just some context. I can come at it as a parent, I can come at it as a current educator and with experience in both high school and middle school. But anyway, this thread says, or it begins with, I don't understand why teachers can't do their planning once school lets out. These kids get so many days off. So the next person responds, I definitely said the same. We never had this when we was going. So my initial response was, as an educator, I can say that a lot of it is for professional development. Administration likes to do that, professional development, because it makes them look good, and the kids still have 180 school days. So that's just from my perspective. There are a lot of things that have to do with administration, just so you know. And also, this particular day off was for a Jewish holiday. So this one in particular wasn't for planning per se, or it may have been for a different school district. My understanding was that it was a Jewish holiday though. So there are those factors. And another thing I can say that a lot of it is to turn in grades, for example. So the reason why there will be planning days a lot of times is it coincides with the end of the marking period. But anyway, so this person responded to me. They said, yup, they just get less summer. What I can't figure out is why they have to load the kids with so much homework to the point they grade depends off it. Seems like homework and whatever they score on the test grades will determine their grade. Well, I can say that yes, homework and test scores are definitely a determinant in your grade. Messed up part is the homework is not a little, it's hours worth. Most folks don't leave work to come home and do more work for the same job unless they the owner. How do they expect kids to stay motivated and not hate school when they are slaves to it? So I could agree with that. And also, too, for context, as a media specialist, I have the good fortune of teaching an elective. So I have a lot more leeway than the core courses. So I just want to add that context also. And I can agree with that in terms of workload. It said they come home not understanding homework. When you ask them if they raise their hand to tell the teacher they don't get it, teacher just repeats the same stuff they first did not understand, but just louder and looks annoyed, discouraging children from seeking help. School system is broken as F, indoctrination to be a slave to the system, work a 9 to 5 your whole life, plus overtime and never get ahead. I just wanted to address this as an educator. I was really moved by it because I can say that in my particular class, it's an elective and I have leeway to be able to teach, basically things that are relevant towards life after high school. You could essentially say that the class I teach is Life After High School 101, but I can also say that a lot of teachers don't have that luxury. But I, for myself, obviously, I can empathize with the frustration being expressed. A lot of it doesn't happen, but I can say for my part that I do make sure to focus on relevant topics that are beyond the classroom. So they don't teach us how to be independent and make our own money. That's actually what we're going over. How to open a business and the rules and laws of operating one. How to obtain a mortgage, index funds, compounding interest, etc. They just condition the children to follow dumbass rules, do as told, don't use critical thinking and ask questions. Can't tell you how many times my kid comes home and tells me how the whole class gets punished for one kid's actions. So backwards. When you commit a crime, they don't send everyone to jail. I could certainly agree with that. And I would be curious for this person. I would be curious to know what age their child is, like how old they are, what grade they're in, etc. I would be curious. So this person responded, agreed. My kid gets home and has computer work to do. It takes about an hour, sometimes longer. Now, here's one thing I want to say, too, in regards to administration, and a lot of this is lawmakers, too. Like, for example, the number of days that are in a school year, that's determined beyond the school board level. That's between, legislation, the school board. I don't know the exact ins and outs, but I do know that that's not simply voted on by the teachers and the principal, for example. That's through the Board of Education. So there's higher levels at play in regards to the timing. And as far as the curriculum, that has to do with the Department of Education. And a lot of it is to look good. I can say that it's for the school to look good or for the school district to look good versus what benefits the child beyond the classroom. But anyway, so I find myself confused at times, like WTF. I remember being a kid and having a page of math or reading or some stuff. Now it's actual work they have to do. Now, what's interesting too, I believe that the reason for that, and I've expressed this frustration in the past, is that it has to do with instructional time. See, when we were children, obviously I'm assuming that anyone listening is an adult. So when we were kids, there was more of a holistic approach. You know, it wasn't so much focused on instructional time, but now, because of standardized testing, there's an emphasis on instructional time. That's why it's less recess, less PE, less this, less that, less electives, less music, less art, and all of those things, because there's an emphasis on instructional time. So if I can say that to you as an educator, that's the reason for that. So it says, my kid is in school from 8:30 to 1:50. That's barely 5 hours, and the amount of home projects they assign is ridiculous. The school is always having some kind of fundraiser or special PTA event. Like, I would rather my kid spend his time in school actually learning useful things instead of having Miami Heat Appreciation Day. School has changed so much, it's ridiculous. For the entire month of October, they will be having all kinds of sales to help the PTA. Damn near every day they want $1 for each kid just to participate in Spirit Week. Is it even about educating children anymore? I can say that there are educators who feel your frustration, and there are definitely educators who would rather focus on a curriculum that's relevant to the classroom. But again, to be fair, you have people who went to teacher school, for example, and teacher school is created by academics, and it's a lot of theory. It's not necessarily as practical as it should be. So that's where that's coming from. So this person said, it's so infuriating. Majority of teachers are trash. That hurts my heart to hear that. However, I know that I'm doing my part, so I won't take it personally. It just makes me sad, and I'm sure it would make other educators sad for those who genuinely do take it seriously, those who take pride in being an educator. But I understand the frustration. You know what I mean? I understand the frustration, and I have had to learn how to compartmentalize that when people are expressing their frustration, that's been their experience. What I can do in response, instead of taking it personally, I know that as an educator, I need to consistently strive to be better, to be receptive to our stakeholders, i.e. parents, i.e. the students or whoever, just to continue to always strive for excellence. So can't stand the fact that when a child does not understand something, they're intimidated to ask for help in fear of the teacher getting louder, looking annoyed, embarrassing them in front of peers. I can say that for myself, and I can only speak for myself, you know, it's like each one teach one, literally. I can say that I've never believed in embarrassment as a method of teaching. That's something that I'm glad is outdated. I'm glad we don't do that. We still need discipline, of course, but embarrassment never helps. It never helps at all. I wish these teachers would go home and have hours of work like they give the kids. In fairness, they often do. They often do. But the funny thing is, and I learned this in education early on, is that anything that I assign, I have to grade 20 and 30 times over, if that makes sense. So someone mentioned, or the previous comment mentioned, having 1 page of math homework. If I were to assign a ton of projects, I'm going to need to grade that however many times over. So even for my own workload, I can say that I don't go overboard for that very reason, because I don't want to have hours of work outside of the classroom. You know, BS. Then us parents struggle to not let our kids fail and fall in the cracks like most of us did. And we are the ones that have to work all day, then come home and cook, find the strength to sit there, teach our kids everything that the teacher fails to, yet assign mad homework, and they have to go through this every day. I want to speak to both sides of this. If you happen to be teaching a middle schooler, I can say that teaching middle school is rough. It's not for the faint of heart. I understand that people signed up for it. I get that. It is challenging. It's challenging all the way around. And if anybody in this thread has a seventh grader, I empathize with you. It's difficult. Just hang in there. It'll be okay. So let's see. It says, F them teachers, they garbage, they can't teach what they don't know, and that's how to be free. So I want to speak to that. Now, there is this is a common thread. It's a common theme to say that, if those that don't know teach. Those of us who take it seriously, it does mean something. It is a profession and it is an art. And for those who truly love it, it does matter. You know what I'm saying? I know, for example, there are teachers striving to be free. I want to make sure I collect my thoughts. So in regards to being your own boss, there are educators who are also entrepreneurs who are in the process of being free. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not disagreeing with the sentiment that's being expressed, but I just want to point out that there are plenty of educators who are working towards financial freedom. So that does exist. I'm not saying that it's everybody. I'm not even saying that it's necessarily common, but it does exist. How to make your own money, be your own boss. Instead, they train our kids to follow rules that are BS. Condition them to spend the majority of their waking day serving a task handed to them with no reward. I will say this, and I've mentioned this to my students, that there are certain qualities that apply across the board, whether you're an employee, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an investor, or anything in between. So as far as that critique, I will say that certain things are necessary, and as far as how to even function in the world, like agree or disagree, we have to know how to navigate this world that we live in. So then this person says, then they expect them to do this all up to 18, then be motivated to go into $1,000 in debt, essentially market themselves to corporations to trade in all the time of their life for income that's never going to truly set them financially free unless they're living with their mama with no bills and can invest all their money. I have talked about investing. I make sure to do that. I know it's not talked about enough. And actually, as far as I know, there was an initiative. I don't know where it is in the legislation, but I know that Governor DeSantis actually mentioned having financial education be a requirement for graduation. I'm not looking to make it political. You can Google it if you like, but that is something that I had read before, to make financial literacy a graduation requirement. I do believe that that would be helpful. So this person said, let's not even get into the BS with the money raising scheme. They teach your kids if you have money, the rules don't apply to you. Pay $1 and you don't have to wear the uniform on that day. Like, WTF is that? Then all the other BS that falls behind it, not to mention the list of supplies these teachers request. I'm sorry, but I'm not sending my kid to school with stuff they don't need. I'm not a bank. They don't need 10 packs of paper along with all the extra stuff they ask. Oh, and the lunch ladies can be racist as F and act like they taking the food home. I see they kids with lunch. Sometimes they want to dabble with school lunch. Our kids going to go tell us what's going on. So there was a whole lot to unpack there. As far as the fundraising aspect, I can say on the other end that I believe that there's a classroom supply fund or something like that where teachers can be reimbursed for supplies or what have you. That can be frustrating, and I'm assuming that this must be elementary or middle school as far as supplies, because in high school, which I enjoy, being a high school educator, is you don't run into that as much. So this person said, don't mind me venting, but stuff is messed up. And then you got the parents that feel school is a daycare and don't pay any mind to what's going on, just send their kid off and that's that. There's definitely that frustration. There are people that view schools as daycares, but it is much more than that. I'm not saying that there aren't poor teachers, but I would also point out that there are poor performers in all professions. I know we're talking about education, and that's fair, and I can certainly accept and embrace that because it's true. However, I can say that society as a whole loves a bad teacher story, and I get it because it's such a critical occupation. However, I will point out that there are poor performers in every profession. There are high performers. There are those that care. There are those who are there just for a check. But that's always ironic when you're talking about education, because the check isn't going to be the number one factor unless you have a really low bar for achievement. You know what I mean? If you're in education just for the check, I would say you should aim higher and maybe find a bigger check to just be in it for. But anyway, I just wanted to respond to some of these comments. As I said, I do my part. I'm not saying that the virtue signal at all. I'm just addressing this thread because it really did resonate with me. And so I wanted to talk about it. But anyway, this has been another episode of Talk and Scroll. Y'all take it easy.